Sairam, my humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Sairam, I'm very happy that we are again meeting everybody here. Like a few weeks ago, we had a very beautiful satsang study circle session with our dear brother Ravi Mariwalla. Again today, he's here to take us again in a new chapter with messages of Swami. For those of us who are just joining today, I'm sure there is nobody here who doesn't know Ravi. He's been going around this country center to so many centers. I'm sure everybody would have met him in person by now. But still, I'll give a short introduction to Brother Ravi. Brother Ravi Mariwalla hails from Mumbai. He was blessed to be a part of Bal Vikas and Pre-Seva Dal and spoke in Baba's presence in 1979 in Mumbai and again at Puttaparthi in the same year. From then on, he had a strong desire to study at Baba's college. Bhagwan gave him this opportunity in 1982 and he studied there for 9 years. At Swami's college, he was part of the speakers group, the brass band, and participated actively in various service activities. Through these 9 years, he had many opportunities to interact with Bhagwan. He also accompanied Swami to Kodaikanal and Chennai. He was also blessed recipient of 3 gold medals for distinction in MSc, MBA, and the All-Rounders Gold Medal from Bhagwan's own hands. The highlight of his time with Swami came when, after completing the MBA program, Bhagwan asked him to work as one of the first employees of Sri Sathya Sai Super Speciality Hospital at Prasanthi Nilayam. Ravi served at the hospital for 14 years in the cardiac surgery department, playing multiple roles, including serving as a full-time clinical perfusionist. Ravi considers it a blessing to share with the community the memories and learnings and insights he gained. He lives in Cary, North Carolina, with his wife Jagruti and 2 boys, Krishna and Siddharth. Sairam, please join me in welcoming Brother Ravi. We had a very beautiful session a couple of weeks ago. We started actually with the first among 9-point code of conduct, daily meditation and prayer. He emphasized on the importance of daily meditation. We also actually talked about observing the Manasika Sambhashana. And we had a beautiful breakout session. Like we were divided into 6 different groups with discussing the 6 different strategies, how to control the Manasika Sambhashana. So I think from there we'll continue today's session. Welcome, Ravi. I hail the session to you. Sairam.
Thank you, Sai Prasad. Thanks. And welcome to all brothers and sisters who are able to join this call. I know it's a Friday evening, and this is a good way for us to do our sadhana. Sai, if you want, you can stop sharing now, so I can, yeah. So, like Sai Prasad said, we took up a tough topic, and Manasika Sambhashana is one of Swami's rare teachings. And in my own journey with Bhagwan, I've been on the lookout for those elements that will help me personally enter the next phase of my spiritual journey. Having longed for Swami, having made a lot of adjustments in our life to be able to be near him. And then when Swami passed, he left us with this body of knowledge. But more than the body of knowledge, he left us with a part of himself living in each of our hearts. And that is what should drive us to the next phase of our spiritual journey, which goes far beyond just self introspection and merely understanding the mind. I believe that our true progress lies in transcending the mind. And when you listen to Bhagwan's discourses or replay them, you'll see embedded in a discourse one or two key messages. And when you cull out these key messages and put them together, I think, at least for myself, I speak for myself, I feel like Swami's mystical messages were not just given out freely all at one time. And that is why, amongst the 6,000 discourses, this term, Manasika Sambhashana, did not repeat, at least to my knowledge. I think it's a sacred teaching. In the English world, in the Western world, it is also known as inner talk or mental chatter or the voice in the head. And last time we discussed that this voice in the head can go from becoming a passing or stray fascination with an object or a person and gradually start playing a bigger role in your life, start taking on a stranglehold over your way of thinking and become a desire and then become a key part of your mind that controls your life. So, Manasika Sambhashana is a really important step. Understanding Manasika Sambhashana, understanding the triggers that cause Manasika Sambhashana. It could be interactions with some people, it could be certain types of meetings where we are put down or we think that we are put down, or interactions with certain individuals may trigger a lot of this inner conversation. So, whether it is events, people, uh, ideas, analysis, memories, or even imaginations, it's important for us to take note of this. And believe me, for me, this has been a personal sadhana. I told the group last time when the Raleigh Sai Center asked me to do a study circle. Out of the blue, they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'll do Master the Mind, be a mastermind." And as I tried to find what amongst the teachings is something that is a blockbuster and what can serve as a change agent in my own life. I knew Swami had said, Manomulam idam jagat, the world is, rooted in the mind. I knew Swami had said a bundle of desires. I knew Bhagwan had often joked with us and said mad monkey, and he said body is a water bubble, right? Talking about the very flimsy and transitory nature of life. One minute somebody is there, another minute he's not there or she's not there. But Bhagwan always gave us these simple phrases to take and run. And I'm going to slowly get deeper. But another thing which he said very frequently to us, he would come out after the interviews and then he would stand there, look at us. We were about 400 boys seated on the portico. And he would say, "You are all very trapped in the this, THIS. But what about the that? This. And of course, as students, we were totally into Swami. We were literally, our entire lives were focused around Bhagwan. And a simple teaching like this versus that today has come to mean so much to me, because this world, which is palpable, tangible, which we have got bonds with, our bank accounts, our cars, our houses, our family, friends, our workplaces, our co-workers, this is all the this. But there is a that, and the that, just because it is a little bit out of reach, we don't spend time trying to access the that. And if you ask me, why is Manasika Sambhashana, why is it important to study and master Manasika Sambhashana? Because this continuous mental chatter, this incessant thought process, which can become uncontrollable. And like I showed you in the previous session, Swami had written, and for those of you who haven't seen that, I can send it out to you. Swami had mentioned that this is the cause of old age. It prevents you from getting sleep. Even if you do sleep, it can be disturbed. Now, some of you may wonder, whether this is all true, but you will see at different points in your life. And this is what we did in our breakout sessions. We got a broad agreement from all those who attended that yes, this Manasika Sambhashana is a real thing. It's not an imaginary thing. And it can become compulsive. It can become very compulsive. It can take over your life. And my own way of thinking is that it can destroy your mental health. It can make you a patient rather than a active, vibrant human being. It can make you a patient because you start dwelling more and more in your thoughts. Now, most of us are not disabled by the mind to that extent, and that is the reason why we are not taking the mind we are not watching the mind so carefully. We think it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, some stray thoughts become desires, desires become mind. It's okay. No, it's not okay. Because this mind and the way it accumulates arguments, thoughts, imaginations, and memories has a way of playing up in a way that is completely unpredictable. And when it plays up in that unpredictable way, it influences our actions, it drives our actions in a way that you cannot predict. And you behave differently than you would normally do. Most of the time, it's okay. You can reverse those steps. If it is anger that you expressed, you can apologize. If you let's say you fell a prey to road rage, most of the time it's okay. But sometimes this Manasika Sambhashana can take control of your circumstances and create irreversible damage. And the mind broadly, while Manasika Sambhashana is the expression of the mind, but if you go to see, and I'll just pull up a slide just so that you are able to relate to some of what I'm saying, otherwise it'll become too much of an abstract talk. But I'll just take you as a recap, right? This is an interesting thing that we said the last time, that the process of mindification, if you may, there is very little scientific research happening on the mind. Everybody is totally preoccupied with deciphering the brain. But it is only in spiritual context that you will get this sort of thought process and the freedom and the group and the time to identify the movement of the mind. How the initial movement, drifting arbitrary thoughts start to take focus, and then they create a storyline. Now think about your work, think about your family, think about the deep storyline that there is with your family, right? You want to trace back to great grandfather, great 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 grandfather, the ancestry, right? And then this takes hold of your mind. Now, why are we saying that? No, great grandfather, great great grandfather, nothing wrong in that. All of this becomes a problem to us only when we over index on it, only when we overthink on all of this, because all of this stray thoughts create a storyline. They influence the next steps, but when they are really solidified in the mind, they don't just influence the next steps, they drive, they become a force that cannot be ignored. And if you doubt me, think about personalities where the mind has taken hold and they have done something either extraordinary, extraordinarily good, or extraordinarily bad. And just because you and I are neither extraordinarily good nor extraordinarily bad, we think we are good, we are okay as we are going on. And that is precisely the opportunity that Swami is talking to us about. That, and this is the core slide from our previous session, where we said, Swami said, and this is from the Vidyavahini chapter 18, he said, Alochana or planning is harmless. This dialogue or manasika sambhashna multiplies the problems, confounds the solutions, causes confusion, and adoption of wrong and ruinous means to solve them. So now we've been through this, right? The question that will come up in our minds is, hey, are we sort of, making too much of this inner talk, this inner chatter, right? It's there for everybody all the time. It's very recognizable after a troublesome event, right? Where you're constantly trying to think, hey, how should I solve this? What are my options? What should I do now? What should I do later? Should I write it down? Should I consult somebody? This thought process becomes so explosive. And the problem is, if you and I now start thinking, if so what? If so what? Is it really that important? Of course, because Bhagwan explained it so much, we take it that it is important. But that's not the way to align with his teachings. If you in your own life feel that you would be different, your actions would be different, your reactions would be different, then you are ready to change. And that sambhashana, while it expresses merely as an inner chatter, right? But the inner chatter has these three key elements. It is always about the past or the future. It is never going to allow you to stay in the present. That's a hallmark of this Manasik Sambhashana. And as a set of faculties, it presents as memories, analysis, compulsive conversations. It also relates to past actions that you've taken. And imagination is a big part of it. Thirdly, the intensity. This intensity, if you analyze when you're having this Manasarka Sambhashana, look at the intensity. Why have some of you not felt that Manasika Sambhashana is such a big deal? Because you may not have recognized the intensity with which it has presented and taken a hold of you. But that intensity determines which faculty it uses, memory analysis, etc., and whether it shifts between past and future. And what happens at the end of this compulsive chatter is that it shifts your attention. It shifts your attention so fully, and it generally is about possessing things or possessing positions, achieving positions, or material objects, or owning a person, completely taking control of a person. So intensity, the temporal nature, and these faculties of the mind which the Manasika Sambhashana uses, it's important for us to recognize. Now, what happens is that Manasika Sambhashana, if it were to be happening and you did not take notice of it, it would be fine. But the problem is that you identify with it. We identify with it. We run with it. We align with it. If you could just let Manasika Sambhashana, this inner chatter, inner talk, just go on somewhere as if it's not related to you, and you are just peripherally aware of it, it would be fine. But it causes you to resist the moment, it makes you feel unhappy, and basically it's Manasika Sambhashana is another way of describing what is called the conditioned mind. The conditioned mind, the stereotypical mind, the prejudiced mind. But the most important hallmark or negative milestone which Manasika Sambhashana creates, which is why we are here talking about it and trying to find strategies to manage it, is that it destroys our peace. Every human being is in search of peace. On the weekends, generally you're more peaceful because during the weekdays you have to manage work, new challenges, maybe politics, and you don't know what's going on that Monday to Friday. Now you can see this in yourself. The level of your peace goes up a little bit. Of course, there could be carry forwards. There could be carry forwards in terms of this Manasik Sambhashana, which you're trying to solve during the weekend, and that will destroy you. But essentially, the problem that we are trying to solve here is our lack of peace due to this constant, compulsive inner conversation, which we've made it a habit to accept. Today, we think that, yeah, it's okay. It is part of who I am. And the first step in reviewing our mental status is to become aware. Oh, sometimes this Manasik Sambhashana takes over, it cripples my innovation, it doesn't allow me to be creative, it doesn't allow intuition to flow. So I know we wanted to make it open to the members, but before you can ask me a question, I'm going to play a trick on all of you. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see you. I'm seeing myself, and behind myself, Swami's picture. So it's like as if I'm talking to myself, which is no fun. But I want to ask you all this question, and feel free, as many of you, one at a time, to unmute and say your bit, that this Manasika Sambhashana or inner chatter, from a strategy point of view, right? Chanting Nam Smarana, chanting Swami's name, trying to divert your attention, doing yoga, those are some of the things we spoke about in the last class. And even if you were not there, it is fine, right? Because as aspirants, these are the typical strategies we use, right? Swami himself used to tell us when we were adolescents, divert the mind, right? So there are so many temporary strategies. Oh, that's very nice. There are so many temporary strategies we can adopt, but I just want to hear from you very quickly, and feel free to unmute or use the whiteboard. What have you felt works for you? And just so that we can keep moving, make it like a one sentence answer so that we can get as many ideas in. Or if you prefer, you can write it on the chat. So you got my question, right? Which of the strategies that we discussed, and I can pull that up for you. I'll pull that up for you. So it was an interesting thing, but I want to today take us beyond that. So we said last time that the 6 strategies, and we broke up into rooms, right? Steady the mind, right? Okay, my mind is wandering, and that is taking me into that Sambhashana. Steady the mind, purify the mind. Purify the mind is obviously not there and then, it has to happen before. Then the next time you have Sambhashana, it will not take, then control the senses. Because a lot of the Sambhashana is triggered, right? I'll tell you my own Sambhashana many years back. There was a very young guy who joined as a vice president in that company there where I joined as a startup. And when I just noticed how young he is, tremendous Sambhashana just started up with me, comparing me with him and thinking why I wish I was so young and being in that same position, right? So sometimes just hearing something about somebody triggers that comparison. And don't think we are beyond that. A small thing like a comparison can set you into a totally wrong direction. It can take control of you, it can drive your actions. And then we said practice fasting. Fasting is supposed to weaken the hold of the mind. Yoga, read the scriptures, chant a mantra, right? Just keep chanting to make you forget that sambhashna. But you may find after you stop chanting, the sambhashna may just bounce back and be there as it was before you started chanting. So I wanted to see, I don't want to influence you just by these six. There could be many strategies, but let's see who is willing to come forward and just share whether you've tried any of these strategies to just control this inner chatter and to help it subside so that you can just be yourself. Any takers?
Hello, brother Sairam. This is Sandeep.
Sairam.
Yeah. So one of the ways which helps me to come out of this Mansik Sambhashana is singing bhajans. And in particularly the bhajan, like, I am God, I am God, I am no different than God. So when I sing this bhajan with a lot of confidence, and I feel that, yeah, so if I'm a God, I would not have this kind of chattering. So this
Nice.
is the one way which works for me. Thank you, Sairam.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I really appreciate how crisp you were. And, thanks for sharing. Very nice. Any other thoughts on this? What has worked for all of you?
Hey, Sairam, Ravi, this is Durjati.
Sairam
Hey,
Durjati.
I was just going to, piggyback on the brother's comments on the bhajan singing. Uh, I think to me, what always worked is first not deliberately planning to do that, but like not deliberately sitting down and saying that I'm going to stop conversation, but somehow playing music, for example. And then in hindsight, I can look back and say that was the time, there was no conversation. So I think somehow I feel like the deliberateness of
Right.
that somehow influences it. And so if you do a practice like chanting mantra, I think somehow very smoothly you actually fall into that. That's one experience, Saira.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Very nice. And Durjati, just on a lighter vein, right? Because you're such a good musician, it's easier for you. But, we may not like to hear the same, hear the, our Shruti if we sing. But obviously, you being such a great musician, it's natural that you took to that path. Okay, great. Any other volunteers?
Ravi, on the chat, I think we have chant Hari, chant a mantra, chant
Yeah.
Gayatri, go for a walk. That is-
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Very
And
nice.
from my side, I would think just re-emphasizing in my mind that Swami is the doer and trying to, there is a higher reason why whatever situation I am in it, to just re-emphasize that in my mind. So that kind of helps me
Beautiful. Yeah.
to.
So what you're saying, Sai, if I were to rephrase that, right? You're saying acceptance, mindful acceptance, right? Because it's like an active acceptance. See, passively we accept a lot of things, but a more mindful uh, acceptance. I think these are great answers, and I really like them. Now I want to ask you all another question. So on that slide that I showed, right, there are three things which I called out. The intensity of Manasika Sampashna. Sometimes it takes a hold of you, right? A big example is your boss at work tells you that even after 3 weeks, that presentation was just not good, right? And you may or may not be able to tell him directly, but you start remonstrating, arguing internally. Why did he say that? Didn't he know that I did so much work? Or she, and these were the factors, and so you start, and then your mind starts going from this past to the future. So this past to future bounciness that the mind demonstrates is a very good way for us all to pick up on the fact that we are entering into an interminable sequence of internal chatter or internal conversation. So I want to ask you all, have you seen this past to future sort of bouncing? Like in this case, right? The past is okay, what happened over the 3 weeks while you were preparing for your presentation? Things didn't work out, the research didn't arrive in time, the client didn't share enough about their situation, etc., etc. That's the past. And then the mind starts presenting to you infinite possibilities of what's going to happen in your future, right? Starting from, oh, there is a recession coming, I may lose my job, I may get laid off, I may miss my promotion. And you start imagining the challenges that will present to you far before, long before any challenge is actually presented to you. So I want to ask you, this depiction that I gave you just now, right? Have you felt like that? Have you felt that this takes a hold and sort of consumes your waking hours and maybe even your sleeping hours? Anybody wants to go?
Sairam, this is Srinivas. Um, so you mentioned just thinking about past few days or months, but I think at least in my case, I would even think of past janmas and future janmas. Uh, Maybe many thousands of years. So one of the things recently that struck me was while I was going for a walk, I saw a fountain, right? Fountain splashing water. So my thought was, it is the same way, right? Mind is just splashing around all the time. And if somehow we are able to look at it from away, sort of trying to feel that that is not really going to impact me. May not be easy, but my thought was that is probably a good way of looking at it and stepping aside of what is happening inside.
It's beautiful, beautiful. I want to ask you a counter question. So when you reason with yourself, is that not the mind again coming back as Manasika Sambhashana, but as the solver of Manasika Sambhashana? You understand where I'm going, right? And this, I want to introduce you to very beautiful thing that Swami said sometime in 2008. He was very in the audio of that discourse. It sounds as if he is almost uh, crying, and he says, "None of you understand how to do sadhana, and all of you are doing sadhana with the mind, and you cannot make progress because you're doing sadhana with the mind." And then goes on to explain why that is the case. And he says, the mind is the thief, but the mind presents as the cop. The mind presents as the policeman. So those who are doing sadhana with the mind, which is all of us, right? And that's why we are here. We're trying to find that secret. That definitely Swami gave us the secret. He spent those years inspiring us, purifying us, and he also left us that secret. But for many of us, that's a journey, that's a part of our journey that's yet to become. So when you describe that, no, brother, and I don't mean to uh, say that that's not the right part. See, there are temporary measures and there are deeper measures, right? So when you use the mind to solve the mind's problems, right, that is nothing but the mind coming back as the mind, and it may help temporarily. But Swami says, don't understand that the cop that you are thinking is the person you're thinking to be the cop here, the policeman, is nothing but the thief in the dress of the cop. So we have to be very careful that are we using a path, taking a path? Are we using the ladder? Are we using a trampoline to help us get out of the orbit of the mind? Or are we temporarily managing the situation, which is also good, right? Because you just need to sleep and you can come back the next day and solve the problem in your waking hours, but now you need to sleep and you need to end that inner conversation. So just wanted to add that sometimes this argumentative nature of the mind, if we use it to argue the mind down, we have to also remember that that is another part of the mind. So if we want to really transcend the mind, what are the other avenues? So let's hear from some others and then I'll quickly flash a couple of other.
Sairam,
Yeah, please.
they say there's a direct connection between the mind and the breath. So, breath or the prana. So, the best way to control the mind is deep breathing and slow breathing. And we will immediately notice that the mind is also becoming quiet. Sairam.
Beautiful.
Sairam, Raviji.
Sairam.
Sairam. This is Srinivas.
Yes.
One of the techniques I try to use, which is not always successful because the mind chatter is so constant and so vigorous sometimes,
Yes.
is to try and put your attention on the sense of presence in your heart, where you actually feel it, and try to keep it there for as long as you can. The different teachings, I'm sure, do nothing, Sumairu by, Thiruvannamalai Swami,
Yes.
just stay still. But
Yes.
this is what I try to practice, to keep the attention, not the thought, in the sense of presence.
Yes.
And try to keep it there as long as you can.
Yes.
It gets dragged again by your mind. Your mind creates another scenario and tries to pull it out.
Yeah.
As soon as you realize that because sometimes we don't realize that we've been dragged by the mind.
Exactly.
As soon as we realize, then we try to pull it back onto that thought. And the best time to practice this is when you're actually lying down in bed at night, when you just lie down, try to go to sleep. That's the time to try and concentrate on this twilight zone, I call it, and keep the attention there. And it should constantly, it should become a practice that every time your mind is pulled out, you try to pull it back in and put it in the sense of presence. So that's what I try to do. Like I said, not always successful, but
No, and that was
I like your analogy that about Swami's teaching. I remember that the thief and the police. The mind is the thief coming in as the police and telling him, "Come, I'll show you. Let's go and search for the thief." Whereas the mind is the thief. Yeah, I like that analogy very much.
And for me, and thank you for sharing. That was beautiful. I really want to take some of your points and build on them, brother. And so for me, when I heard Swami in that anguished tone saying, as late as 2008, that you all don't get it. You don't get it. And you're doing sadhana with the mind. For me, that was a big wake up call. I didn't hear it in 2008. I heard it much later as I was researching through discourses. And I heard the audio of it. And it struck me that Swami, this great avatar who had millions of people willing to just follow him, he is saying you don't get it. What are we missing? Are we just doing the simple things and ignoring the real thing. And what is the meaning of not using the mind? So let's examine that, right? The mind is only built out of everything that the senses provided it. There is no mind. Don't imagine that just because we are talking about the mind, that the mind is a separate entity. That is a figment of our minds. The mind doesn't consist of anything that was not brought into it by one of the senses or many of the senses. Examine your mind. There is nothing in it that did not come through the senses.
Yes, Raviji, mind is the phantom self, right? The phantom doesn't exist, but it acts as if it exists. Yes.
Yes. So this mind that is built out of inputs from the senses, though, and even in the Gita, Lord Krishna says that it is the 11th sense. It is beyond the karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas. It is the inner sense. Now the challenge is what you said, brother, that our attachments. So let's forget about the daytime when we are doing stuff. But when we sit to meditate, either we fall asleep, or the first thing that happens when we sit to meditate is we feel like, oh my God, I need a pen and paper. All the things that my unfinished thoughts, unfinished tasks, I need to list them out. And that only happens when I close my eyes.
Yes.
So now if you go a little bit step further, right? What are the things that are bubbling up in your mind when you close your eyes? It is all based on our attachments. And I don't mean to philosophize that I am not attached. No, I am also attached. But just for the duration of my meditation, I say, I'm just going to leave these things be for some time. Just that half an hour or 1 hour. Let me just try to find that state that Bhagwan is talking about, which is not connected with the mind. Is there such a state that if Swami said it, it must be there? What is that? What is that? And I'm just flashing a couple of slides for you all. They're interesting, right? Because, like you were saying, brother, if you could bring your attention to your heart, if you could, let the mental chatter go on as if it's a playground somewhere else and you're a spectator, right? So imagine you're watching a cricket match and there is that 2 minute break time they take, right? And you're eating your popcorn. Now you're a spectator on that field, but your attention is on your popcorn.
Yeah.
If you could do that, yes, I had this conversation with my boss, it didn't go so well. Right now, I'm here. I'm focusing on things which are around me now, right? So, what Swami has said very beautifully, and this is what I'm requesting all of you. In the public discourses Bhagwan gave, there were thousands of people sitting. There were villagers, there were teachers, there were doctors, there were visitors, there were Westerners, there were businessmen. He was catering to everybody. He gave us a little bit of powerful teachings in every discourse. And I just found this in the 1983 discourse. I just picked up this one powerful sentence where it says, by relating the experiences to the I as the experiencer, the consciousness of a distinctive individual arises. If you can disconnect for some time from that manasika sambhashana, you will be opening your inner machinery, your inner consciousness to a different dimension than is possible through your imagination, memory, and problem solving, which is the mind. So, by this constant relating of the experiences, right? In our case, this conversation with our boss about that meeting, right? You are relating to that experience with the I, and you convinced yourself that this I is all about that experience. Now the funny thing is, when you retire, your first job, your second job, your third job, your fourth job, all of which were very intimately connected with your experience of you yourself, just ceases to interest you. You will not enter Manasik Sambhashana when you're retiring for even your first 4 jobs. This is unimportant. It may still hinge on your last job, right? Because it may have affected your 401k or maybe whatever. I'm just joking, right? But you can see that time itself dims this thing that is happening of relating your experience to your inner self. And this is precisely why you and I don't think that, why is Brother Ravi talking about Manasika Sambhashana so much? I feel if we can crack the code on Manasika Sambhashana, you and I have gone very far in our spiritual journey. So don't tire of the fact that you're focusing on this, because when you sit to meditate, if you want the power of meditation to make you grow spiritually, first you have to meditate and not think. But 99% of the time, I'm speaking for myself, I'm not meditating, I'm thinking. I'm thinking. I'm thinking of my to-do list. I'm thinking of my unfulfilled desires. I'm thinking about the next activity. I'm thinking about sometimes dreamy storylines, some movie that you saw long back, useless images. Now, the big question before all of us as devotees is, how can we really meditate and not think? And we just didn't want to make out as if those, what I showed you, right? I'll just show you this again. These 6 strategies and some of what you all said, right? Breathe better, breathe mindfully, shift your attention, because after all, attention is the one thing we have inside, right? You
There
can
are
move
some
your attention.
techniques. Mhm. Sairam. There are some techniques which we can prepare before we sit down to meditation, such as Brahmari Pranayam and the alternate nostril breathing, etc. They balance the Ida and Pingala, and that brings enormous sense of calmness, and that gives us greater depth in meditation. So just sharing a couple of tips on
Yeah,
how
yeah,
we can actually meditate rather than, and also
yes,
they said 45 minutes because the mind, excuse me, may be used to wandering for the first 25 minutes. But if we can push ourselves through, then the mind becomes tired of wandering and it just calms down to listen to what messages we can get from the other realm. So we just need to
yeah.
extend the duration of meditation. Meditate early in the morning, meditate closer to your sleep, or early in the morning, Brahma Muhurtam, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. So all of these are techniques for meditation that I've learned from
Yes,
a very good group. Thank you, Sam.
sure. No, thank you for sharing that, sister. So these plus the strategies that sister spoke of, Mrs. Srinivas told us, right? Now let me show you something. So this what I flashed was about how we are making the error of connecting our experiences and thinking that is I, right? But now let me show you something that is really transformative for us. So Bhagwan has spoken about, this was a discourse he gave in 1993 in the summer showers. And this is one of the few occasions on which he spoke about a very abstract and very challenging topic. And the reason I bring it up is that I was there in Brindavan. I was working in the hospital, and Swami had asked us to come and attend this series of talks. And it shines in my own consciousness because this was such an important teaching Bhagwan gave. And it was difficult for us to process this because mind itself we are not able to process and really manage it, right? But Swami in this discourse, and it's all available for you, you can go and find it. My Swami spoke about the over mind, and he spoke about the higher mind and all of that. Now you can read this later, but what I want to tell you is, brothers and sisters, the techniques, the breath control, the chanting, the slowing of the breath, we'll have to be very careful to check. It may work, but check out whether it is a part of your mind again. Is it reasoning? Reasoning is a element of your mind, right? And Swami speaks about this being that is self-knowing, this uniki, which he mentions in Telugu and Eruka. He says that there is an entity within us, which is, he's not even going to the Atma. If you read this line, Chitta, willpower, and Pragnya, constant integrated awareness. And he has often spoken about this. In fact, he made a joke that it is CIA, constant integrated awareness, not a central investigation agency, right? So that pragnya is available to us. And my suggestion to you all is, while yes, we are all still dependent on techniques, on ideas, and on, methods, all of those are still external to us. But if you are able to find that pragnya, if you are able to turn your attention to that constant integrated awareness that is shining within you, then the whole need to apply breath control or, Swami used to joke sometimes and tell us, you don't need to do gymnastics for meditation, So you don't have to hang from a pole or do some big gymnastics. So my understanding, and this is the sadhana I've been doing for a while, is that that entity which is within me, that pragnya which is shining, which is vibrating, which is available, if I can find that and I can align with that, I can shift my attention from the playground on which all these thoughts are unfolding to that pragnya, that CIA, then I don't even need all these techniques that we are so used to and we depend on. But again, those techniques are nothing but a manifestation of our mind. The mind is so clever that it is allowing a technique to work temporarily with us. But we are not able to really meditate and find and identify with this eruka or awareness. So for me, this particular teaching that Bhagwan gave in 1993 about the overmind, this Mahakarna Sharira. So there's the Karana Sharira and then there is the Mahakarna Sharira. If we want to really make progress and move in that direction, we have to let the physical be. See, even the breath is a physical element. Argument, convincing ourselves, reasoning, that's a mental element. Now, what is there beyond physical and mental that if we touch, if we align with, if we know this Manasika Sambhashana, even if it is continuing, it will become totally irrelevant and unimportant. So this is what I wanted to communicate with you. It is totally within the purview of Bhagwan's teachings. Yes, there are a lot of other masters also talking about presence, stillness, and all of that. But it's not that anything is right or wrong, but learning this from our own Swami's teachings is one of the key things I wanted to share in this program called Practice and Inspire, right? We have to practice following Bhagwan and his teachings, because if we could not get it from Bhagwan after he tirelessly invested in us, and we are still looking to other ideas, other scriptures, other masters, right? It's fine. It's everybody's individual choice. But in this program, Practice and Inspire, we need to highlight the power, but we may have to sift through the many ideas that Bhagwan has presented and bring out. That is the work of Sai devotees for the coming generations. That is the work we have to do. They were not able to see Swami. They never heard from Swami's own lips this versus that. But those simple teachings, water bubble and mad monkey, those have helped us so much. And through this sort of teachings that Bhagwan gave about prajna, which is constant integrated awareness, and the fact that he told us with great anxiety that you're not doing sadhana in the right way. So, in some way or the other, we are allowing the mind to return and be part of our so-called conquest of the mind. And that conquest of the mind will always be incomplete if we use the mind to transcend the mind. So in this teaching, I feel that the prajna, the concept of the prajna, and the fact that what do we have to do? We have to turn our attention to that constant integrated awareness. You don't have to manufacture it. You don't have to imagine it. Like sometimes we say Jyoti meditation, imagine. You don't have to imagine this. Imagination is just an element of your mind. So there is a shining or vibrating prajna within us. Our effort just has to be to find it and switch our attention from thoughts, desires, and manasik sambhashna to that prajna. I'll see if maybe we can have one question, Sai Prasad. Is that okay? And then we start to wind up.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Any thoughts, any question? Quick, if you can do a quick thing, we can have 2-3 people contribute quick comments. I know this was heavy, but I think this is the thing that we should be talking about and really agonizing over, if anything,
Sairam, I have a quick question. Is this constant integrated awareness our consciousness, or is that separate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll answer it very quickly. Swami said that within you, there are 3 things. You are conscious, right? That is just being sentient. We are sort of, conscious. Then there is the conscience, which he equated with our buddhi, which is one step above the manas, right? The mind. And then there is consciousness. My understanding, sister, is that prajna or constant integrated awareness, which Swami said in that brief snippet that I projected, the constant integrated awareness is in the Karana Sharira, and in the deeper Mahakarana Sharira, that is the Atma. So the Atma is something that you and I cannot imagine, cannot reach easily. But the prajna is the form of that deepest consciousness which is available to us. So that is how I take that prajna. Now, it's very important, sister, that we don't go off and imagine this. And I think we have to be very true to this idea that Nama and Rupa, that is name and form, imagination, memory, past, present, all of these are in the mind. So we should not try to imagine what is prajna. Prajna is there in our inner space. And that's why we took up the topic of Manasik Sambhashana. As long as there is this noisy mind, we'll never find prajna, though it is resounding, though it is self-evident, though you don't need to imagine or manufacture it. But the Manasika Sambhashana is clouding, is suffocating our attention and attracting our attention away from that prajna. So we don't need to imagine prajna. Prajna is there. You have to listen for it. And you can only listen for it when you stop entertaining thoughts, stop listening to thoughts. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other quick question? I know we are over, but just one last quick question or thought?
Raviji, Sairam. Raviji, yeah.
Yes, Sairam.
The two things that you were mentioning, the eruka is awareness, which is Shiva. He's in the background. In our scriptures, they show Shiva as a body on which Parvati stands, and Parvati is the consciousness or the energy or the Shakti, as we call it. And that's the same thing as Prajna that you were talking about. You can catch hold, you can put your attention on the consciousness. And as you keep watching the consciousness, it leads you to the awareness. So I think the process is, Swami says it's very simple. You hold on to a handkerchief, you're holding on to the world. All you have to do is just release your hold of the handkerchief. That's all you need to do. We're not able to release it because of this phantom ego. Yes. So keeping the attention on the consciousness, which can be I am consciousness or Parvati or Lalita, whatever you want to call it. And then as you keep your attention continuously on it, it's supposed to lead us to the awareness, which is Shiva, which is the only thing that exists. That is the only one that exists. So that is, there was one Swami's teaching, know thyself. I don't know, it was in some book that I read. All the practices that we are doing are all false.
Yes.
So,
yes. And that is what should trouble us. Uncle, that's what should trouble us. That's also what should awaken us. See, nothing is forever. Even Bhagwan himself, as much as he invested his time in nurturing us, in inspiring us, he left the body. In the same way, we have to understand that no practice is forever. And we have to be willing to move. Not that we have to go and try hundreds of practices. Eventually, we have to land in that inner space where no practice matters. And in that inner space, if the seeking is sincere and these clues are followed, see, the thing with spirituality is, why can't it just be written out like that? Because immediately you will imagine it.
Yes.
You will just imagine it. So even the word I am is a word. If I'm chanting I am, it is the mind has taken over completely. So any word, language, imagination, memory, thought, I'm not saying they are bad. In our existence, we need these, but not in our meditation. In our meditation, if we go with the inner resolve that I'm going to exclude anything that I can recognize as the mind, but first I should understand that. And that's where our Shastras and Vedant comes in the picture. To understand that all of these are what constitutes the mind. So I cannot fight it, I cannot eliminate it, but I can start to understand that these things have taken a hold on me. Now, if I really want to go beyond Nama and Rupa, what is left within my consciousness, within my inner zone? What is left? And we have not examined that inner space enough. We have got fascinated. So if Sri Ramana Maharishi said, who am I? We took who am I? Because very easy, right? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? How can who am I get you the answer? Who am I is not an inquiry, it's a search. By it, there is nobody who's going to come and say, oh, who am I? Here is you, who you are. That's not what it's going to be. And Prajna and the Atma when you do experience it, when you do identify it, it's obviously beyond the mind. So the Atma doesn't have color, shape, in notes, and you will not be able to remember it. You will not be able to imagine it. So that is why it is not a straightforward teaching. But if we are really sincere and we take this secret teaching of Bhagwan, I like to call it a secret teaching because never repeated it. If you can be very sincere about it, be very tough with yourself when you go into a meditation. Say, I'm going to turn my attention for these 20 minutes. Thoughts may come, but I'm not going to engage with them. Memories, imagination, to-do lists, past experiences, just after those 20 minutes. Breathing, yes, great idea. A lot of masters talk about breathing, but after all, it's a physical thing. I'm trying to go beyond physical, mental, and just examine what is there beyond physical, mental inside me. If we do this long enough, I believe we'll find that prajna that Swami was pointing to. And again, just think about it. I'm not making this up. In that 1993 discourse, he said this. Just go and look for yourself. Has he repeated this 20 times, 30 times? No. Story of Rama, story of Sita, story of Sakubai, story of Tyagaraja. He's repeated 40 times. Mahakarana Sharira, overmind, prajna. He doesn't give more because there's no point giving you more. If he gives you more, you'll go and imagine and write some books about it. But self realization is not about books, it's about examining our inner space and releasing ourselves from the bindings of the mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is Sai is what he used to use the word see always inside is what he said. As that is the practice, I guess. See always inside to focus on the attention. Thank you very much, Ravi.
Thank you very much for your participation, all of you. And Sai, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Sairam, Ravi, thank you so much for such a beautiful session. Such deep topics. You are able to go at such a beautiful pace for everybody to like really understand, follow, and take it back for the next couple of weeks. Again, when we meet next time, again, I think we should continue on this beautiful topic. Durjati is also here. Please, sir.
Oh, so yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Ravi. Such a brilliant analysis and also such a beautiful way you actually developed the topic for all of us. And this is a very important topic. And I think it is the root of all the study circle topics that we have, because I mean, mind is at the root of all this stuff. That said, I think we'll have the opportunity to continue on this series of the study circle topics. So I really want to first of all my gratitude to Ravi and also my gratitude to Bhagavan actually for getting us into this study circle topics.